Good morning, everybody. MikesMMAPicks here with your Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown show brought to you by BetDSI as well as MMA Oddsbreaker. We are here for UFC Vegas 45, the final card of 2021, where we have Derek, the Black Beast Lewis, taking on Lewis-Daukaus. 5 rounds. I don't think that fight is going to hit the scorecards. First off, I want to thank everybody for their loyalty, supporting the program for the entire year. Appreciate you. Let's get into this UFC event where we have the first fight of the night at lightweight. Matt Sayles, after a significant layoff, coming off of the Bryce Mitchell loss. Man, what can you say? 5'7" frame. At one point was up to 250 pounds. I know that's a narrative here, taking on Jourdain-Ewell, who is one of the most peculiar individuals in the sport. Jourdain-Ewell, significant grappling edge in this spot at minus 130. This fight is not expected to go to a decision. You look at Matt Sayles, spent some time with Dom Cruz a while ago, has excellent striking, is a dog out there, will fight hard for your money. The problem is if he gets put on his back, that's when he runs into some real problems. Has not shown any semblance of a get-up game. And against Jourdain-Ewell, that could be asking for trouble here. I do see Sayles getting the better of the striking exchanges early. That is, if he is able to keep this fight on the feet. If this fight hits the mat, Sayles is in big trouble. I know in interviews, he's mentioned that he's spent some time trying to secure some of the holes, shore up some of the holes in his game. I will be picking Sayles in this spot, though. I think that his striking, there's just a huge disparity on the feet. And also, despite Sayles coming in after losing 100 pounds, he does have some gas in the tank here to cause Levitt problems on the feet. And I think that that's what's going to happen. I don't see this fight going the distance. I think that we are going to see Matt Sayles walk away with victory. Don't rule out Jourdain-Ewell submission, though. Give me Sayles. Next up, second fight of the night, where we have heavyweights. Don'Tale Mayes taking on Josh Parisian. Parisian coming in as a plus 155 underdog. Mayes minus 195 on the other side of the fight. Both of these fighters very low level heavyweights. Parisian does have the gas tank edge, larger fighter. Mayes, more competent striker, more fluid striker. Parisian, man, he's barely hanging on to a job here at the UFC heavyweight division. I'll be picking Mayes. I think that this is one of those fights that you can pass. This fight is barely expected to end inside the distance. In fact, fight doesn't go the distance is sitting at minus 135. Both of these fighters have shown that they are durable to some extent. Parisian, though, if he's fighting lesser opponents, he seems to show up well. But anytime he has a step up in competition, he gets blown out of the water. Mayes may not be that step up at competition. So this is a coin flip type fight. I don't understand Mayes being a minus 195 betting favorite. I think that is not warranted. I will be picking Mayes, though. Better spots on this card. Next up, third fight of the evening, where we have Raquel Pennington coming in as a minus 165 betting favorite in a fight that was moved to 145 pounds. And then you have Mayes-Parisian missing weight, almost coming in at 150 pounds as a plus 135 underdog. I'll come out and say this. Mayes-Parisian is one of the few fighters on the UFC roster who I have not seen any improvement over her last few fights. I think that she got bailed out when Aspen Ladd missed weight. And now look at how things are playing out here. Pennington is a rough and tumble fighter out of Colorado who, if she can get this fight to the mat, is going to cause Mayes-Chiasson some problems. Chiasson doesn't have a get-up game, is a liability if fights hit the mat. You go back to that Lena Landsberg fight, that it was a disaster, and that really opened a lot of eyes, including my own. Raquel Pennington is going to be the pick here. I know that she's giving away a few pounds, but when you're on your back and you don't have a get-up game, she is pretty much a fish out of water, Chiasson. And I expect inside of the smaller octagon that this fight hits the mat. So give me Raquel Pennington. Next up, where we have a fighter, Andre Ewell, who's coming up to 145 pounds at 33 years of age. This is a fighter who has been incredibly long for the bantamweight division. Now is still long for this division. 5'8" with an enormous reach, taking on Charles Jourdain, who's still only 26 years of age. You watch Jourdain fight, and he has been given opportunity to learn inside of the octagon as a youngster. And frankly, that's not what you want to be doing here. I know he was thrown to the wolves against Des Green right off the bat, then found himself in there with Andre Fili and Choi, and he's hasn't been making strides. Concerning. Now, this matchup versus Ewell, I think this line could be much closer than it is. Ewell has the footwork and the length to cause Jourdain some serious issues. Is this fight going to end inside the distance? That is a good question. Jourdain has explosiveness, does not have a ground game. This fight should take place on the feet. This fight is expected not to go to a decision at -130. I think both of these guys could get sucked into a firefight right off the bat. Battle of wills. Who's going to fall first? And I'm interested to see Andre Ewell up at 145 pounds. I'll be picking Jourdain in this spot. Interesting how you have Ewell, who's sustained some losses over the past few years against subpar fighters, and Jourdain's fought the better competition. The Julian Erosa fight, you saw him break in there. Scary to see that out of a youngster who's supposedly growing and improving every time out. But Jourdain and Mayes-Chiasson, these are fighters who are not improving fight to fight. Granted, I'll be picking Jourdain in the spot. Ewell could make this interesting. I think that they're going to get caught up into a firefight, and it's going to end inside the distance. I think Jourdain's going to surprise some folks here. Next up, where we have another fighter who missed weight, Sijara Eubanks, coming in, trying to make 126 pounds, missed. -175 betting favorite, taking on Meerschaert-Gatto, who Gatto is going to be looking for that inside trip. She's going to be trying to close distance. If she wants to stay on the outside and try to play the range game with Eubanks, she could do that. The volume's there for Meerschaert-Gatto. I just question her strength, and if she gets put on the bottom, Sijara Eubanks' top game and her wrestling is no joke. It's just a matter of, can Sijara Eubanks sustain this pace for 15 minutes? We've seen Eubanks run out of gas down the stretch in many fights. I think Eubanks is going to bank a couple of rounds here. It may get interesting late, and it wouldn't surprise me to see Sijara Eubanks falter down the stretch and give up some big moments to Meerschaert-Gatto. But the first few minutes should be all Eubanks here, and I'll be picking Sijara Eubanks. I don't hate the line at -175 there. Gatto, young fighter, has been away from the game for for some time, and then how much stock do you realistically put into the win over Leonardo? Really, I mean, she also won that fight via stoppage. There was a broken limb in that bout, but give me Sijara Eubanks to get the victory there. Now we head to another low-level heavyweight striking affair. We have Justin Tafa, whose claim to fame is that his family comes from a lineage of fighters. Grandfather was a professional boxer, our national boxing champion. His younger brother is a glory kickboxer. And here he is, 28 years old, missing weight at heavyweight. How often does that happen? Never, until now. So minus 315 betting favorite for Justin Tafa, taking on Harry Hunsucker, who is coming in 10 pounds lighter than he did for the Tai Tuivasa fight. Harry Hunsucker, a plus 245 underdog. If you watch the interviews for Harry Hunsucker, he said he's laid off the alcohol this camp, barring a couple of times he had a few drinks. So how much stock are you going to put into each of these fighters at the low level? As a minus 315 betting favorite for Tafa, yes, he's by far and away the cleaner striker. Hunsucker is every bit of his nickname, the Hurricane, comes out guns blazing, knows no other way, is very quick for a heavyweight. I will give him that. He's quick, but the wheels fall off very quickly for Hunsucker. I don't think that he has the gas to go 15 minutes, and I don't think he has the chin to go 15 minutes. He's also said in his interviews that although he's trained to go that long, he knows that the fight isn't going to last that long. So Tafa should come out here, pick his spots. If this fight hits the mat, we haven't necessarily seen Tafa off his back often, and he looks like he doesn't know what he's doing there. Almost looks like a starfish getting stuck on the bottom. Has no idea what's going on. Hunsucker, if he is looking at a path to victory, it's either a early knockout, or if he's able to smother Tafa and stay in top position and force Tafa to make some catastrophic mistakes, which that is a realistic possibility. We are talking about low-level heavyweights here. I think at some point, though, in the first round, possibly early second, we're going to see Tafa land a enormous fight-ending strike. Hunsucker, although this strategy may be effective versus the regional type competition, Tafa may be that regional competition, to be honest, but Tafa does have the much cleaner striking, and I think that he's going to land a big bomb and put Hunsucker's lights out. Next up, where we have Raoni Barcelos coming in as a minus 355 betting favorite, taking on a Victor Henry who has a very impressive record, has some experience in Ryzen, is a well-rounded fighter, coming in on short notice against a Barcelos who has fought the likes of Said Nurmagomedov, Timur Valiev. He was in there with Khalid Taha. Barcelos fought legitimate competition. You have to wonder, how is he getting these fights booked for him when he should be fighting higher ranked opponents, getting closer to a title run? But this look what happened last time out. He was up on Valiev, was having his way, and then Valiev just would not be knocked out. Had the will to stay in the fight, was being sandblasted all over the octagon, and came back. Now, Victor Henry, does he have it in himself to pull that off? It's yet to be determined. But from the tape, Victor Henry does not necessarily pose a significant threat as far as knockout power goes. Submission may be there, but Barcelos has competent wrestling and a jiu-jitsu game in his own right. You watch the resemblance to Jose Aldo. There are so many aspects of Barcelos' game that remind me of Jose Aldo. 34 years of age. In fact, I would love to see those two end up squaring off against each other. Barcelos, though, heavier hitter, has significant firepower, has a gas tank coming in with a full camp. I'll be picking Raoni Barcelos in this spot. And let's see what our friends have to say. Good morning, Matthew. Appreciate you. Thanks for checking in as we close out 2021. Our goal here is to provide nuggets of information that may be helpful to you as you navigate the terrain and handicap fights. Morning, sir. Great to see you. Oh, we're going to chat about the Gamrot Ferreira fight in a couple of minutes. We'll get back to the task at hand here, where we have Gerald Meerschaert coming off of a impressive victory as an underdog against Muradov, taking on Dustin-Stoltzfus, who is coming off of a choke submission loss to Rodolfo Vieira. Stoltzfus plus 190 at the betting window. Meerschaert minus 235. Meerschaert more paths to victory here. More experienced fighter who should be a favorite in this spot. If we break things down, yes, Meerschaert could come out and wet the bed here. He's done it many times before, but in all likelihood, Meerschaert, more competent, well-rounded fighter with more paths to victory. And Stoltzfus is a bit of a journeyman and hasn't been able to perform on the grandest stage. Well-spoken individual, articulate young man with a ground game, but I don't think he's going to be able to keep up with Meerschaert. I'll be picking Meerschaert in this spot, but I also think that there are better spots on this card. Next up, where we have the damage, Darren Elkins, coming in as a plus 155 betting underdog, taking on Swanson. Killer Cub, who, granted, both of these fighters are at the tail end of their respective careers. Darren Elkins, you watch his previous fights. This is a elder statesman who was outstruck by Derek Minner, outstruck and outgrappled for the most part against Derek Minner. Nate Landwehr was having his moments on the feet. Ryan Hall was making Darren Elkins look silly, straight up silly in his fight. And the only way that Elkins has been able to save himself is his survivability. And that is a rough way to make a living as a fighter who is simply there to absorb punishment and wait for his opponent to run out of gas, and then has the wherewithal to turn the tide, and it becomes a war of attrition. That is Darren Elkins' path to victory here. Swanson has Darren Elkins beat from a striking sense. It's a enormous, like stratospheres, how different the landscape is when we were talking about the striking. Swanson, yes, he's been submitted many times before. Yes, he's talked about dropping down to 135 pounds. That is a concern here. Elkins is a large featherweight. Elkins, you watch his pre-fight interviews, the man seems to be morphing throughout the course of his career. His eyes are darting in separate directions, and his facial structure is starting to really wear. His conduct during interviews, the way he's putting sentences together, it's concerning, though you cannot count this man out. He's always in the fight until the ref steps in. And in this spot, I mean, we're either going to see two things happen. We're going to see Swanson come in here and just piece Elkins apart, tear through him, and somehow Elkins either wobbles around the octagon and the ref stops in, or Elkins survives, and Swanson empties his clip, attempting to get Elkins out of there. And then the tide turns, and you have Elkins on top of Swanson and raining down punches, possibly locking in a submission. I'll be picking Swanson in this spot. The footwork of Elkins, watch Elkins try to maneuver around the octagon. That's something that I'd like to point out to everybody. Look at his footwork or lack thereof. Give me Swanson in this fight, coming off of that ACL injury and the Pineda fight. And also the Giga kick heard around the world. By the way, I've got to mention Giga Chikadze going to be fighting Calvin Kattar. I'm sure folks who faded Giga in the past are probably lining up now to take another stab at whoever he's facing. All right. So next up, where we have Carlos Diego Ferreira, who has been a moneymaker for us in years past, taking on Mayes-Gamrot. Gamrot has, you look at the way things were lined against Jeremy Stevens, and his fights leave some things to be desired on the feet. We're talking about Gamrot. Yes, he's got volume, but the head movement or lack thereof is a concern. Diego Ferreira, tremendous grappling game, jiu-jitsu game, the way he's been able to sweep opponents in the past. When he went over to Fight Island, the gas tank was not an issue. In fact, he persevered there. Carlos Diego Ferreira, our biggest play over the past few years, was to have him beat Anthony Pettis. In this spot at 36 years of age, coming in as the last fighter to the scales, somebody who fought Gregor Gillespie, came in at 160 pounds in that spot. No spring chicken here. Gamrot, if this fight ends up hitting a second and third round, I really expect Carlos Diego Ferreira to start to fade and fade hard. Diego Ferreira does have hands. Granted, it isn't pretty. He does have hands, could cause Gamrot some issues if they end up getting in striking exchanges in the middle of the octagon, but the volume of Gamrot is a weapon, and the cardio of Gamrot is a weapon. He's going to have to stay out of the submissions here of Ferreira, so that is a real threat as well. I'll be picking Gamrot in this spot. I'm not counting Carlos Diego Ferreira out of this fight. He is live, especially early. But give me Matthias Gamrot in that spot. Next up, where we have Raphael Assuncao, aging bantamweight, 135 pounds, plus 230 underdog, taking on Ricky Simon. Ricky Simon, this line is ballooned to minus 285. Raphael Assuncao, 39 years of age, coming off of a complete bicep tear. We haven't heard much of this on MMA Twitter. Something to look out for there. He hasn't fought since devastating knockout to Cody Garbrandt. Raphael Assuncao is a phenomenal fighter, skill for skill. Problem is, he now is getting a little long on the tooth here as far as his career goes. His fight against Corey Sandhagen didn't do as much as I expected from a grappling perspective against Sandhagen. Sandhagen, we've seen him controlled for significant stretches. That you're going to have a tough time doing that to Ricky Simon, who is a bulldog, who has a tremendous gas tank. Assuncao does have the much cleaner striking here, and that is a real threat. If Assuncao, the counter puncher, is able to wobble Ricky Simon, that is an issue. Ricky Simon, though, better gas tank, better wrestling, and also he's going to have the volume here, and he's the much younger fighter. We're talking 10 years younger, coming off of a win against Brian Kelleher, where Ricky Simon, man, you look back at that performance. That was a pretty darn good performance. I was impressed there. Timo Yama, trained fighter. Raphael Assuncao, grizzled veteran. I'll be picking Ricky Simón in this spot, though. I know Assuncao is nothing to be. We need to be careful with Assuncao because he's always live. But I'll be picking Ricky Simón. I think the longer this fight goes, we're going to start to see Assuncao's age show. Next up, Amanda Lemos taking on Angela Hill. Angela Hill plus 235 underdog. We've seen Angela Hill in there against some killers in the past. And she is fighting a young lady. Well, not necessarily. She's 34 years of age, Amanda Lemos. Someone who has precision, accuracy, timing, and power. Lemos may not have the volume, but when she does throw, she causes opponents big problems. And Angela Hill is somebody who gets by on volume and movement, footwork. Amanda Lemos, in this spot, I'm expecting her to come out completely dialed in, as she's done in previous fights. The question, though, is if Angela Hill survives, what's going to happen in that second and third round? I think Amanda Lemos is a threat on the ground here. She does have a potent finishing ability, both on the feet and the ground. And Angela Hill likely will be put in some very precarious situations. I'll be picking Amanda Lemos in this spot, but a line that has stood out throughout the week was the Angela Hill by decision line. More likely than not, though, we see Amanda Lemos come out here and just tear through Angela Hill. I think that is the likely outcome in this spot. But if Angela Hill is able to pull this off, the volume is there to cause Amanda Lemos problems. You could be playing with fire if Amanda Lemos is only throwing 1 or 2 strikes every 30 seconds or so. But Amanda Lemos, great upward trajectory in her career, hasn't necessarily fought significant competition. This is going to be a little step up here. But Angela Hill, also another aging fighter here. Let's see. She's getting up there in age here, 36 years of age. So I'll be picking Amanda Lemos in that spot. Yeah. We also talk about aging fighters. Where we head to 170 pounds, we have Wonderboy Stephen Thompson coming in with a 16-5-1 overall record at 38 years of age, taking on Belal-Muhammad, who is sitting as a plus 170 underdog. The issue here is Belal-Muhammad, anytime he fights a legitimate striker on the feet, he gets pieced up. You watch throughout his career, the Jeff Neal fight, even in his debut against Jourdain, there have been many others. Anytime Belal tries to close distance, he eats strikes. And Stephen Thompson could potentially cause Belal-Muhammad some serious problems here while Belal is closing distance. Now, if Belal is able to secure his hands behind Stephen Thompson's back and land that takedown, that is a problem. If he's able to get a body lock here, we know that Stephen Thompson does have great takedown defense, but I do have some concerns if Belal is able to land those takedowns. Granted, that's a really tall task. Throughout the career of Stephen Thompson, he's showcased some tremendous takedown defense. Another thing that's not being talked about is the loss of Chris Weidman in Stephen Thompson's training ability here and his training camp. Chris Weidman's been nursing that injury, trying to slowly work his way back. Stephen Thompson, what kind of grappling is he getting in throughout this camp? I'll be picking Stephen Thompson here. I think that the striking of Stephen Thompson is just going to be too much. You have a huge level disparity here in ability on the feet. Belal, though, has a great gas tank. And if Belal is able to push a pace on Thompson and stay on him like glue for significant stretches of time, that could drain Wonderboy. But most fighters would get drained themselves initiating the grappling. Just hasn't necessarily happened to Belal Muhammad. He's been able to stay in these fights. And I'll be picking Stephen Thompson, though. I think that he's the rightful favorite. All right, here we go. Evan says Belal needs to wrestle early and often. Yes, that is his path to victory. If he wastes any time trying to strike with Stephen Thompson, that is a bad decision. Okay. Yes, Belal does have a high fight IQ, but you also look at somebody who has a fight IQ that is through the roof. That would be Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Let's get to the final main event of the evening. My final main event of the year of 2021, where we have Derek Lewis coming in as a plus 115 underdog, taking on Chris Daukaus, minus 145. This fight is not expected to go to a decision at minus 450-ish. I don't see this one hitting the scorecards. I don't think that's a stretch to say that. Chris Daukaus has heavy hands, is at a 30-pound weight disadvantage, puts himself in some precarious situations while he's closing distance, will try to counter. And Derek Lewis has been known to play the counter game himself. You watch the fight against Francis Ngannou. There have been other fights where he just waits and waits and waits, Volkov, etc., and then he unloads. Lewis, as far as skill for skill goes, I think Chris Daukaus has Lewis outmatched here, skill for skill. You look at the jiu-jitsu side of things. I don't think he's going to have any success trying to hold Lewis down or trying to lock in a submission. That would be a very poor decision to try to submit Derek Lewis. I do not think that's happening unless he's completely gassed out. And you watch Derek Lewis fight, and he's a fighter who will play possum often. And it's a dangerous game if you're an opponent of Derek Lewis and you have Lewis playing possum. He can unload and turn your lights off in a heartbeat. And that saved Derek Lewis's ass so many times in the past. He's been outmatched skill for skill. This is another fight where that's taking place. But Daukaus, I have concerns about his chin. I have concerns about his durability. Lewis has been known to quit on many occasions. The Mark Hunt fight, just wanted out of there. Many others. The Gane fight was completely blown out of the water in that spot. Daukaus, skill for skill, better fighter here. It's just a matter of who is going to put whose lights out, because somebody's going out. This fight should end via knockout, and I'll be slightly leaning Chris Daukaus. He is going to be my pick. Derek Lewis, it would not surprise me to see him end up landing a finishing blow here. And then we see that obnoxious celebration. Chris Daukaus has mentioned in previous interviews that he does not want to be a part of that celebration. He's going to have to meet fire with fire here and try to get Lewis out of there when he's hurt. Dangerous game to play. I don't envy him in this spot because it is a very dangerous game to play. Marcus, do you think the smaller cage favors Derek Lewis in this fight? You know, that's an interesting thing that you bring up. I think it does because they're going to be forced to exchange inside of the smaller octagon, Marcus. And that anytime you have Derek Lewis exchanging in a smaller octagon with another heavyweight, there's a chance somebody's lights are going out. Chris Daukaus, cleaner striker, no doubt. Yeah, but defensively, I have some real concerns. Daukaus could try to use his footwork here. Dangerous to do that, though. I don't think he's going to have success after, let's say, the second or third round. We've never seen Chris Daukaus really spend time deep in fights, testing his mettle. And do you really want to do that versus Derek Lewis? I don't envy him one bit, but this is the heavyweight game, and I'll be picking Chris Daukaus to win this fight. I'm going to say it's not going the distance. And I want to thank everybody for their support through the year. I want to thank MMA Oddsbreaker, the team over there. It's been almost 3 years now doing our thing. Third-party tracked, long-term winner, taking a measured approach week after week, card after card, year after year. Try to do the best we can with the resources available to us. So cheers to everybody. Remember, go get what's yours. Thank you. And we'll be seeing you in 2022. We got some big things planned. So thank you. Let's do this.